Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about prepping for a new stack. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, I have two questions. I want to change my job into a bigger team so I can grow. The problem is I like the domain or the field at my current company. So I'm quite picky about applying to companies that must be in the same field. What is your opinion as a front-end dev to stick to the same field? My second question is, what if the position asks for Angular developers, but I'm mostly working in React? Can I say to the company that I would learn Angular before starting to work for them? The first thing, let's reverse the order. So the first thing that I would say is that for your second question, whether or not you can say that you're going to learn it, you can absolutely do that. But then my first question is, why not do that before you apply for the job? Because if you go to a job interview and you don't, if you're not actually putting Angular on your CV, that might stand out immediately. It probably is going to be fine because you already have work experience, so that should still save you. But if you're applying for an Angular position and the way that you present yourself is, hey, I'm this person who did something like I did React, and I'm very open to learning Angular, but I'm going to do that on your company time. It sets a bad tone immediately. It's better for you to, because this is just my experience at the very least. If you've learned React, you already know how React works, or it doesn't have to be React. It can be Vue. It can be, as long as you have the core skills, as I like to call them, of one of the SPA frameworks, it's not much of a leap to get into the other thing. You're not gonna most likely be the person who pushes it and comes with all of the most trendiest and most amazing ideas right off the bat, but it shouldn't be much of an investment for you to learn it. I would say that a solid professional level software developer who's worked a few years in React moving over to Angular or vice versa or to Vue shouldn't take more than a week or two at most. At least to learn just the basics and get to a point where you're productive enough to actually hold down a job. Because that's the thing that's beautiful about software development. That once you have the core skills, transitioning from one thing to the other is usually not, depending, of course. There are some transitions that are pretty big and pretty hard, but overall it's not a problem for you. The only people that I know of that faces serious problems with this sort of thing is the boot camp level developers that I meet. And the bootcamp level developers, usually they struggle with doing anything or learning anything that isn't part of their their very narrow understanding of software development, because usually a bootcamp level developer only knows a set of tools. That's all they've learned. But on the other hand, if you are, as I said, a real professional, this shouldn't, with a solid education and so forth, it shouldn't be a problem for you. So I think that you should just invest 1 or 2 weeks, learn enough so that you can say that you're proficient with it and you can answer the basic questions regarding Angular and take it from there. Because it will also show that you're willing to actually put some effort into this thing, rather than to say, hey, I expect you to hire me and then I will learn the thing that you want me to learn. It's just, I think it's nice. I think it's good. It sets the right tone. For your first question regarding having a field or something like that, you are who you are. If you really want to work in that field, then yeah, sure, stick with it. The way that I usually approach these sorts of things is that I like to say that you should never decide what your type is and always trust your gut. And that is something that I've followed for most of my life to pretty great success, I would say. And it's not just for programming, it's for everything from food to who I spend my life with to what jobs I pick and so forth. Because the thing is that I truly believe that the biggest mistake a person can do is to make a mental commitment to what I call automatic thinking. And automatic thinking can come in many formats. It can be everything from that you identify as something and then you lock yourself into thinking, well, I'm this person and I'm that person, or I'm part of this club, or I'm part of that country, or I'm part of this group, and so forth. And you lock your thoughts down to this idea where you basically start dismissing new information just because you have this mental picture of who you are and what you're all about. When the reality is much more complicated usually, because who you are is a liquid thing. It's something that is in fluctuation all the time. It's something that is constantly being bombarded. If you're living correctly, at least in my opinion, you are constantly being bombarded with new impressions, new experiences, new information, etc., etc. And if you lock yourself down to thinking, yeah, this is what I'm about, I'm going to dismiss everything that is not this thing, you're actually not evolving as much as you could. And the thing is, if you just trust your gut feeling, because that's the beautiful part, if you just let go of that you have a type of something, or like you have a preference in significant other, or a preference in food or whatever, just go with your gut. Because if you truly are or in a space where this thing where where you have a type at that moment, you don't have to decide that. You don't have to make a mental commitment to it, because your gut is going to tell you for you that you still want to. I don't know, if you only like pizza, well, you're still going to like pizza. But as you grow older and the more experiences you acquire, at some point, well, either your gut is always going to tell you to always go for the pizza, but maybe at one point someone tells you, you're just drunk enough, or you just have that perfect combination of friends who goes and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we try sushi today. And you're for whatever reason your gut doesn't kick in, and you go, yeah, actually, let's try it. And all of a sudden it turns out that you love sushi. Worst case scenario, you didn't like it, and your gut tells you, no, you actually know. Yeah, I was right. Pizza was the way to go. And so that's at least how I try to live my life. And so far I can only say that it's been working pretty well. It's hard to say if I've been missing out on stuff, or if I've burnt myself on things that I could have avoided. But that's the beautiful part about not knowing the future. Doesn't matter which choices you make, because you cannot possibly know if they were the right ones. There's no way to tell. So what I want you to take away from this is that first and foremost, if you ask me, like, should you commit to a field or a type or something for career purposes, I think that at least for me, the life philosophy of saying I never commit to, like, I never decide to have a type of something. I just go with my gut. As soon as I'm faced with any type of choice, is at least the thing that works out for me the best, because your gut is always going to be the smartest thing you have, because it's the beautiful part. You can train your gut to be even better, and that comes through life experience and wisdom and so forth. But your subconscious mind paired with experiences, there's nothing more powerful that you have at your disposal to making good decisions. So I try to always leverage that as much as possible. And the second thing is, if you're going to transition from, say, React or Angular or any tool, you don't. It's not a big investment if you already know an SPA to move from one to the other. So I would just suggest that rather than do the lazy thing and say to a new employer that, hey, I'm going to learn this on the job, just take those 2 weeks, a few nights. It's not the many hours we're talking about here. It's basically like doing homework back in school. And you will know enough to be productive, and then you can put it on your CV and say that, yeah, I've been fiddling around with this a little bit, and I'm not an expert, yada yada. And your employer is going to feel like, yeah, okay, this person feels sort of, on the level. It's going to set a nice tone for the relationship between you and your new employer. Have a great day.